So here we have a super compact Slack agent that can surf the web and is context aware, or in other words, it remembers details about its users. And as with all the news articles which have been out lately, I just had to call it Intern. You're going to want to stick around for this build as we will cover everything step by step from building the Slack app to setting up your own Supabase database and connecting your agent to the internet. But before we get started though, let's just quickly demo and see how it works. As you can see here in Slack, I already asked this agent about the latest developments in AI and got a reply that seems comprehensive and recent. Now let's quickly check if it's able to go out to the web and get us a few leads about a few AI engineers, so I'm just going to ask it to list the top 3 AI researchers around the world right now, and let's see if it can get us the info, and we see that it can. Now let's try and see if it knows who it's talking to. I am just going to ask it if it's aware of who it's speaking with, and as we can see here it is. Now, let's get started with this build. In n8n, we have a total of 7 blocks that we will need for this. For our trigger, we are going to use a simple Slack trigger that activates on bot mention, so let's go ahead and connect this to our agent, and we are going to connect our output on the other end. Now going into the Slack trigger, we see that we need 2 things to get it to work, a webhook and the Slack API. So let's go ahead and head on over to Slack, and as you can see here, I am in my workspace, so I am just going to navigate to Apps and click on Add App, which is going to bring us to the Slack Apps page, and we can just head on to the Slack Marketplace by clicking this button. Here we can see we have the name of our workspace and a bunch of other things, but what we are interested in is the Build tab. So I'm just going to click on Build, and then I am just going to go ahead and click on Create New App. I am going to select from scratch, enter an app name. For me, I am just going to call it Junior, then select a workspace and go ahead and click on Create. This page might be a little intimidating for some, but trust me, it's not as bad as it looks. We are just going to head over to OAuth and Permissions, scroll over to Scopes, and under Bot Token Scopes, we are going to add a few OAuth scopes. The first one is going to be App Mentions Read, followed by Channels Read, followed by Channels Join, followed by Chat Write, and lastly, Groups Read. The purpose of these scopes is to give your app permissions. These 5 are typically required to get your app working. So I am going to leave it here, but you can go ahead and play around with scopes to customize your app further. Once you have these permissions set up, you're going to want to scroll up and click on Install, and then allow the bot to access your workspace. It will take a second to install, and as you can see here, we have a success, which means the app has been allowed into our workspace successfully. We also see that Slack has generated a bot user OAuth token for us, which we will need to connect our app to n8n, but we will come back to it later. For now, let's go back to our workspace and add this app that we just made. So in this channel, I'm just going to type @junior with a hi, which will get Slack to prompt us to add Junior to our channel. We are going to click on Add Them and get our bot in. Now let's go back to our OAuth and Permissions page, copy over our OAuth token, and add it to n8n as a credential. So I'm just going to click on Create a New Credential. Let's name it Slack API so we don't get confused in the future. Paste our access token, and then save it. You will see it light green, which means that now we are connected. Now let's select the channel we just added our bot to, and then we are going to click on our webhook to copy it, and click on Execute Step so that our webhook starts listening. Now let's go back to Slack and get into Event Subscriptions. Let's give it a second, turn it on, and then under Subscribe to Bot Events. Let's add a bot user event called App Mention and paste in our webhook under the request URL. And as we can see, our request URL has been verified, which means that we have a fully functional app that we can talk to. And all we need to do now in our n8n instance to test this is to change the channel to New Channel, as that's where we installed our app. Click out of this chat trigger and go to our AI agent block. And here we will change the source, which says Connected Chat Trigger Node, to define below and for the prompt. For now, I'm just going to say do nothing as we are testing it and click out of here. Then we'll go into our Send a Message block, and we see that we just need 2 things to set up here. So let's set the first one to Channel, as we want our app to help all users who are a part of that conversation. For the channel, we will select the one that our app is installed in, and for the text message for now, I am just going to type hello. And that's pretty much it for setting up Slack. Now let's give our model a brain. So I am going to go into the Gemini chat model and select Add a Credential. If you are looking for this key, just Google for DeepMind API, and you will find it. So I am just going to paste in my API key and hit on Save. For the model, I am just going to look for Gemini 2.5 Flash, as it should be more than enough for this demo, and click out of here. Now let's deactivate the other blocks so we can test this workflow. So I am going to turn off the Supabase, aggregator, and the web search blocks. Now let's get into our workspace and call Junior, and I am just going to send a hi. And hopefully, if everything goes according to plan, and I didn't screw up, Junior should respond back saying hello. And as we can see here, we got a response back. Now let's go back into our workflow and make it more dynamic. So I am just going to click into my AI agent, and as we can see here, we got our first response back. So I am going to delete the do nothing text from the user message and instead drag in the user text field. Now our agent can dynamically respond to users, so let's click out of here. For the Slack message block, let's go in, and from our last run, let's drag in the agent's output. Now let's go ahead and test it. So back in the workspace, I am just going to ask Junior if it can say please subscribe and see what we get back. And as we see that Junior's got my back, we also see this little message linking n8n, and we can turn this off by heading over to our instance, going into our send a message block. Under options, let's add an option to include link to workflow and turn it off. Now let's run the workflow again and see if our app remembers our conversation by asking Junior what it remembers, and as we can see, it has no memory. So let's give it one by heading over to our Supabase block. Clicking into the block, we can see that we need a credential. So let's head on to our Supabase project. All you need to do is create an account and you will pretty much be on this screen. But before we connect our Supabase to n8n, let's go ahead and create a table. For now, we just wanted to be able to differentiate between users and also remember their conversations. So we're going to go ahead and click on Create a New Table. For name, let's just name it Memories. We don't need a description for this one, and now let's add 2 columns. So let's go and click on Add a Column for the first one. I'm just going to name it User, and for the type, it will just be a text field. This is going to be the one that helps the agent differentiate between users. Now let's create a second one called Details, which will have the same text type, and this will be the one which helps our agent remember details about user conversations. Now let's just go ahead and click on Save to save this table, and as we can see here, we have our table in Supabase. Now let's go ahead and get into our project settings and navigate to the option which says Data API, and we are going to copy our project URL. Go back to our instance and we are going to create a new credential. Now let's paste in that URL for our host, and let's go back for our service role secret. So we can just click on Go to API Keys and go ahead and reveal the key so we can copy it. Head on over to our instance and paste in our key, click on Save, and as we can see, we are green and good to go. Now let's click out of here, and sometimes this table name might or might not go green for you immediately. In that case, just click out of it and go back in. So let's go ahead and select the table that we just created. Make sure that Data to Send is set to Define below and add our fields. For the first one, let's select User and leave the field value empty for now. And for the second one, let's select Details and leave the field blank for now. So let's go ahead and get out of here and connect our Supabase tool to our agent. Going back in, we see that we have our last run's data showing up here. So we can just go ahead and drag the user object to our user field and our text object to our text field. Now that we have given our agent a dynamic connection to our database, let's go ahead and set up an instruction. So under Properties, I am just going to add a system message. And for now, I am just going to say that each time a user sends a message, create a row in Supabase, but never create more than one row and click out of it. Now let's go ahead and test the workflow to see if it works. So let's call Junior, introduce ourselves, and go back to our workflow. And as we can see that our agent sent over something to Supabase, let's go back and check the response on Slack. And as we see, it is doing some work for now, but is quite unhelpful. Heading on over to Supabase and going to our table editor, we see that a row was added to Supabase with the user message. Now let's go on over and create its recall function back in our instance. First, let's activate our Get Many Rows block, get into it, and select our table that we wanted to get the memories from, and let's just switch on the option to return all. and add a row that helps only pull data which is relevant to the user who is interacting with the agent. For this, let's select our user field. And for the condition, we are going to select equals. And we pretty much have this built. So let's click out of here and connect our Slack trigger to it. Now when we get back in, we can just drag in the user object to give it the ability to dynamically address users and click on Execute step. As we can see, we have a table as our output, and switching over to JSON, we see that we have information like ID and user identifiers, which might not be useful for our agent. As this step already identifies the user, it would only need the timestamp and the details for context. So let's click out of it and activate our last block, which is our aggregator, and connect the Supabase block to it. Getting in, we see our JSON once again, but let's switch it over to schema. And under the aggregate option, let's select into a single list. For the output field, I am just going to name it user memories and include only specified fields and drag them in. These are going to be our created object and our details object. Now that we have these in place, let's go ahead and execute this step to see what kind of data we get back. And as we can see, our data has been consolidated under one field called user memories. Now we can just click out of here and go ahead and connect our aggregator to our AI agent while deleting the direct connection to the Slack trigger. And getting into it, we see that our system message has turned red. This is just because we disconnected the direct connection. So we can just look through our Slack trigger and drag the text field once again and delete the old object. Also, now we have our aggregated memories object, which we can pass through to our AI agent in the system message. So for this, I am just going to change it over to expression. And for now, just add in a prompt saying, please take user memories into consideration when responding. And go ahead and drag in the user memories object beside it, which will keep expanding with each conversation. And let's make it easier for our agent to understand it by changing the type. So let's go ahead and convert it to JSON by adding a dot to JSON string. This will just keep everything consistent. Now let's click out of here, test the workflow, and go to Junior and see if it can recall us. So let's just say hi once again, and as we see, it does remember us, even if not in a super helpful way. We just need to tweak the system prompt to make it powerful. I will cover it at the end, but before that, let's just go ahead and give our agent access to the internet. So we are going to go to Tavily. This is just a platform that helps your agents navigate the internet just like you would. And once you log in, you will be on this page. So I'm just going to copy my API key from here. Now let's go back to our instance, activate our HTTP request tool, and get into it. In here, you would want to go to Authentication, choose Generic Credential Type, and under the Generic Auth type, choose Header Auth. Now we see that we can add a credential. So let's click into it. For the name, I'm just going to call it Authorization. And for the value, I'm just going to say Bearer, put a space, and paste in the API key we just copied from Tavily. Now let's save it, and as we can see, we have it go green. Now let's head back to our Tavily account. Click on Documentation, and on the documentation page, we want to get into the Quick Start option, navigate to Tavily Search, and on the top right corner where it says Python SDK, we just want to switch it over to curl, go ahead and copy it, and then go back to our n8n instance. Here, let's click on the option which says Import Curl, and let's go ahead and paste what we just copied over from Tavily. Now all we need to do is click on Import, and we will see all our fields have been auto-populated. Here for starters, let's just turn off our headers, as in the previous step we already configured it by adding our credentials, and we are pretty much set. For me, I just like to change a few things in the JSON to get better results. For the first one, in topic, I will just change it from general to news. And for the search depth, I will change it from basic to advanced. And lastly, for the max results, I will change it from 1 to 3. These are pretty self-explanatory. And if you want, you can read through the documentation to further customize it. But now let's click out of here and connect our agent to our HTTP block so it can access the internet. And to make our search more dynamic, let's just go ahead and open the schema for our Slack trigger and look for our text. Now here on the JSON side, where our query says, "Who is Leo Messi?" let's just go ahead and delete that and instead drag in our text. Now that we are all set and our agent is connected to the internet, let's click out of here and go ahead and get into our agent. Here I am just going to replace the system message with this custom prompt. This is just a custom prompt that allows the agent to understand what it should do and when it should access the internet. If you want this prompt, just leave a comment below and I will make sure that you get it. But for now, let's just go ahead, click out of it and test our workflow. So I'm going to go over on Slack and call Junior and see if it can get me some details about what's happening in California today. And hopefully it gets back to us with something interesting. Now, as we see, we have a comprehensive answer which is recent and updated. Now let's see if it remembers what we were talking about to check if it is context aware. Give it a while. And as we see, our agent is indeed context aware. Thank you for watching this video, Legends. Show some love by clicking on that subscribe button if you found this helpful. And I'll catch you guys in the next one.